This is the Realty Classroom Podcast, episode number 117. If you don't have a value ladder, you're in trouble. Are you a real estate agent with an entrepreneurial spirit who wants to turn your job into a business without sacrificing your lifestyle, but you just can't seem to find the right plan or any plan to help you get there? Well, then, hey, you're definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Realty Classroom and the host of this podcast. And to help you get started in a more strategic direction, I've created a free jumpstart course for you, and it's waiting over at freeagentgift.com. It has a nice little infographic over there where you can get strategic by just looking at it and understanding our entire business in one page, and also a small little walkthrough course where I walk through each of the main bullet points that I think are important to get you started strategically, which is the key. It's made all the difference in my business, and I want to share it with you. All right. I want to get started in this episode with this concept of a value ladder. Now, this is something that I've heard about for a long time, and it's important eventually as you hear things to try to say, okay, let's take this seriously and figure out how does this apply? I mean, there are a lot of great business concepts out there. There's the customer or the hero's journey. There's the value ladder. There are all of these things that seem to make sense, but then you go try to apply it to your business and it gets confusing. So that's why I'm here. I want to help you. I want to help myself. I want to help my mastermind group. I want to help us figure out these important concepts and how they relate to us. So here we go. Point number 1. You must see your whole business as a value ladder with clear steps up. So we're just, as you know, if you listen to this podcast, I'm always fresh off of my mastermind coaching program. And I just sat in front of my whiteboard, which is off to my left here. And I built a ladder. I tried to look at these other businesses, and shout out to Russell Brunson and his book, .com Secrets. Might sound like a funky title, but in there he has some very good depictions, things that he learned once upon a time from Dan Kennedy, who taught my mentor, Craig Proctor, who also was taught by Madison Avenue greats, blah, 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 right? The point is, what gets extracted from that, some really basic core concepts that most of us just won't sit still and implement. We always want to believe it requires some distant creative piece of our brain rather than just mastering the obvious. Well, a ladder of value is exactly what it sounds like. It's a step up. So where do you start? And why do you start with that? I mean, if I could have this all back again, that's what I like about doing this podcast. I get to look back over 21 years of mistakes and say, look, if I could have it back again, I would have sat still and I would have built up my ladder to begin with. And what I would have done at the bottom is understood this concept of a freemium, right? Like a premium, it's a freemium, meaning you have to give away your best stuff for free in a business. Some might call it a loss leader. I understand in retail, you might not be really giving away something up front. Could be a free t-shirt that goes with something. Could be some sort of a bait. I understand it. But in my case, and in our business, I thought really, I think that concept of giving away our best stuff for free, that really struck me as powerful. What if we could really give away our best stuff for free? Wouldn't that make us wildly unique against our competition? But then all of a sudden you panic. You say, well, wait a minute. If I give away my best stuff for free, why does the buyer or seller even need me? Well, turns out it's not so easy to just give away your best stuff for free because your best stuff is maybe not what you think it is. See, what we do is complicated. It's a very complicated business. We're in the guidance business. We know that. We've established that. We serve people. We don't help them buy or sell the house. We guide them through the process of them deciding to buy or sell. I know it's a subtlety, but it's a big one, and it's important, okay? We don't really sell houses. We guide people through that process. That's a better way to look at it or say it. So what does that mean when it comes to the development of a freemium that you can even give away? Well, what I did was I thought about that process that I'm about to take the buyer through A to Z, the seller through A to Z. What does that look like chunked up into modules? So I sat down once upon a time ago and I said, all right, universally speaking, we go through these steps. And I chunked them up into these main categories. So for the seller, I came up with 7. For the buyer, I came up with 6. Then I sat down and looked at each one of those modules and I wrote a little narrative about the order of things in each of those. Next thing you know, I had a booklet. really a guide, a plan, a basic information plan that was universally describing how to go through the process, or how it actually is when you go through that process. So as an expert, as a pro, I was able to just write down, universally speaking, what any buyer or any seller goes through, put it in order, put it in a booklet, and voila, I had my freemium, something that I could give away. Now, is that really my best stuff? Well, certainly it is the information upon which my best stuff, and you'll see this value ladder, how it works. It was the information upon which any real estate agent should be and will be taking a buyer or seller through. And I think a lot of times we assume that the buyer or seller is so savvy. Oh, they're a doctor, they're a rocket scientist, they're this, they're that. What does that have to do with real estate? They don't do this every day. In fact, I've seen a brain surgeon melt down over the buying process when he was moving from the West Coast to become my neighbor. I mean, he said, you guys have your own language. So stop assuming that everybody's so savvy about real estate, because there's your first value proposition problem. You think people that don't even have a license are smarter than you in the context of real estate. If that's you, stop it. Stop it. Don't be in this business if that's the way you're going to continue to think. You need to act as if you are the professional, even if it's early on. So one of the first things to learn is, how do we take a buyer or seller through the process? And if you can come up with some sort of a freemium that you can productize, meaning, what does that mean? Well, I made it into a booklet, a physical booklet. Yep. Well, guess what? During the podcast, if you're watching the visual version, here it is. It's a magazine booklet of that course, right? So I put that together and I'm able to give that away. And of course, it has my contact information. It has a little bit of some of the properties that I've sold. It drives them to my website. So sure, it has a little bit of my marketing, but it is definitely about them. It is definitely about giving them the educational information that will empower them to go through the process in a better way. So I have this first step as my freemium for those folks. Now, it turns out you get all excited about your freemium and here's all the guidance, but that's really not what they want. See, now we have this collision of, here's the stuff they really need, guidance, productized. I want to give it away, but now we have to deal with this whole thing of, what do sellers and buyers really want when they first start the process? Well, they want access to property information, pictures, details, etc. That's what they want. And especially in the digital age, they can't wait to go online and get what they perceive as all of it. And it's really not all of it, but that's where they go. So that freemium, I found, needed to be bulked up with a lot of what they want too. So for example, let me give you a couple of contexts. I started to envision that when I was applying my value ladder to expireds, or I was applying my value ladder freemium to open houses, I needed to have property information along with it, and I needed it for both buyers and sellers. So my thought was, why don't we layer in some sold property, because that is beginning to become even more valuable than just for sales, because it's actually for buyers, here's what the money has been buying, and for sellers, here are the properties that have been selling around you that are affecting your value. And you layer that on top of these two freemium courses that lay this out for you. Okay, good. We have some really good stuff. That's our best information that we can give away for free. Okay? So that's where we start. Now, it doesn't matter. Like, we're not even talking about traffic yet. See, a lot of you will run out and say, well, I do expireds, I do probates, I do internet leads, I do internet home evaluation, I do postcards. That's when you go to traffic sourcing. I'm talking about the value ladder in our business generally for all of us. How does it work? We need to introduce ourselves with guidance and begin to show them the properties that relate to that sort of guidance in some context. In other words, let me just be more specific about this so I don't confuse you. If you want to do business in an area where there are expireds, you're going to give that expired property owner some information of properties that sold around them, along with the guide. Okay, so that's contextually interesting to them. If a buyer comes into your open house and they don't like that open house, you want to have other sold properties and, of course, some other for sales around that property that are similar price. You give them that with your buyer guide. So you're contextually correct when you give this away. It has relevance to those people. So that's what I mean by that, right? But now we get to this point where, all right, I gave away my best information for free. And really, if this buyer or seller uses it, it should be super helpful. In fact, I'm adamant that they should be using it. I don't care if your sister, your cousin, your brother is your realtor. Take this while you're talking to me. Take it and use it with them. It's really important. This is my best information I can give you. And if I were to interpret it, this is what I would start with. And that leads to the second point. You must recognize the right time for your upsells on this value, because as you go up on the value ladder, you're upselling. I know you're going from free to free in the example I'm about to give you, but it's still an upsell. It's an upgrade, whatever you want to call it. And this is how you can relate it to any business. See, online, you know what it's like. You go in, you get a freemium, then they want to upsell you to a low-end product. Then they want to upsell you to, a webinar, and then they want to upsell you to a high-end product. That's a value ladder that you're ascending if you're interested. But along the way, a good value ladder actually gives you true value at each step. So that there's an ingratiation, there's a law of reciprocity that kicks in where that person is so thankful, they're ingratiated the fact that you gave them some very helpful stuff, that if they have context, they'll step up. So this is what I mean. What we found from a telemarketing standpoint is that there was a hole in our training. That as top producers, we knew our value at the next level. So for example, let's use expireds. If I come to your property, beyond just sending you this package of information that will help you get your home sold the next time, if I now upsell you to an appointment, so you all want appointments, get the appointment. You don't stop pestering your inside sales telemarketers, and you just keep pestering more appointments. Why? What's the value in it for the wrong person? See, there's the point in the ladder. You can give this to somebody who has context. That's the best place to start. Somebody walking through an open house, expired. Those people have real context of interest. They've expressed it really openly. And so you can lean in with them. But now, as you give away your best stuff, you typically get the opportunity to ask a question. Hey, thanks for coming to the open house. Here's the information I said. By the way, why are you thinking about buying? So now I'm saying, instead of just trying to upsell anybody and everybody, I'm asking myself, is this the right person to upsell? Do they have a real reason why? See, in our mastermind, we did a lot of avatar work recently, meaning ideal client thinking. Who is ideal? Who are the people that we've worked with that are ideal? Well, it wasn't the hard, raw demographics like, oh, she or he is 43 and a half years old and they have 2.5 kids and they live in this place and they're going here. Those demographics are helpful. But there's a qualitative part of this process. Do they really even have an interest in doing this? I mean, real estate is a huge individual financial and emotional transaction that you just don't make, that happen on a whim. You don't do it on a whim. You have a real why. So after that exchange of information, asking the question, why are you thinking about selling? Why are you thinking about buying? Because then you can listen to the answer and say, that's a real reason. And you can even further qualify. Well, that's a pretty big reason. On a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you? You're a 10? Great. You're ready for my upsell. Well, what's my upsell? Well, and again, by the way, I'm saying that to you in a training context. Please don't say that, right? Hearing that you have a real why and you're highly motivated, what I could do is instead of mailing this information to you, or instead of just giving it to you and sending you off to look at these properties, see, now I can go into the next level. Let's stick with sellers. I'd be happy to bring the package of information by and hand deliver it. And while I'm there, I can give you my insights into your situation because now I can see your home. I can see its exact location, its exact condition. I can give you tips on what to do and what not to do the next time to get it sold against the plan, right? I can benchmark it against the plan and the information I was going to send you. I can pull it all together. So what is the upsell in that case? Well, the upsell is my insight, which is extremely valuable and still free. It's still free. There's no obligation to list with me. So when I come out there, if I can just see it, I can really give you some advice on what to do and what not to do. And you don't want to make this sound corny or scripted. Even though you've probably heard this stuff before, the problem is the quality of the conversation that's happening, the way it begins. See, we're always so selfish about getting that appointment, getting in the house, and we can't wait to kick the door down. But again, the old adage is prospects pursued run away. But prospects magnetized in with the right information because they have context, and then further qualified to have a real reason, it's a logical upsell for them to say yes to. You have a super big reason to move, and you're still motivated to sell this house. Why don't I just come over, bring the information? Now that I can see it, I'll walk through and I'll give you my tips on what to do and what not to do. Right? There you go. Logical upsell. Timing is right. Message to market match. My message is if I come over, I'll give you insight. And it's matching you because that's what you need right now. So your second tier up becomes that appointment that just makes sense for everybody. But see, if you're rushing through the first thing, let's say you do a good job. Hey, it's Danny Griffin calling from Griffin Realty Group. I noticed that you opted into our website to search for properties on Cape Cod. And I'm calling to make sure that you're getting the properties that you wanted. Looks like you were looking in Osterville from $575,000 all the way up to $1.5 million. Is that right? No, we actually wanted to be above $1 million. Okay, well, let me refine that. Were there any other towns you were interested in? Yeah, we wouldn't mind Katuah too. Good, let me make that adjustment as well. Wonderful. Hey, by the way, while I have you, why were you thinking about buying a house? Well, this whole COVID thing and all the violence in Boston scared us, and we want a second home, and the interest rates are super. Wow, great. Big reason. On a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you? Well, after this COVID scare, we're motivated at a 10. Well, did you have any plans to come down to the Cape anytime soon to take a look? Yeah, we were thinking about coming down Saturday. You know what I could do? I'm going to do a couple things for you in addition to you just seeing the properties that come for sale. Let me take a little look in Osterville, in Katuah, over $1 million. Let me send you some sold properties so you can see what the money's been buying. I think that'll be helpful. And then if you're planning on coming down this weekend, I'd be more than happy when you look at some of these properties, and I can even make some suggestions. We can set a few of your favorites up and make some appointments for you if you'd like us to do that. See, it becomes logical in that moment. It's just so easy. It's not like I'm trying to beat around the bush or be weird with some NLP languaging or some goofy thing. I'm just serving. Now, if they push back and say, we're not quite ready for that. I don't think we're coming down this weekend. All right, well, let me just get you the sold property so at least you have the insight as to what the money's buying. Let me look at a couple of things and I'll give you a couple of my thoughts. And when you are ready to come down, I'll set a few up for you. Or if you'd like, since it doesn't sound like you're coming down anytime soon, let me know if there's something you really like. I'll just go book an appointment myself and I'll do a FaceTime walkthrough with you. It's an upsell. See, what I'm doing is I'm going from information to information that has some insight, solds. This is more insightful information, even in just that upgrade, as it relates to them. See, I might have generically had them set up on a website. See, I switched very quickly to the buy side. It doesn't matter. It's the value ladder. Here's information with insight. And if it makes sense, let's get together in the appointment in the field to see a few of your favorites in your house so I can go over this. Becomes logical. And then, of course, the next thing is that the timing is right now to close for the client relationship. And I'm going to stop there so I can move on to the next point, right? You see, I see the whole business as a step of ladders, and I've always built this. And by the way, if you look at, go download that free course and get that infographic there, you'll see these modules. I see it in. So we go from this module of marketing, which leads us to conversion, where now we have these people that we can talk this way to and move up the value ladder all the way to client. Then we put them under agreement. They go to closing, and we're closing them with care so that they know we still love them, so that they birth their way into our past client community where they're likely to repeat and refer because they had a wonderful ascension. Everything was the best it could be. And as business people, we're able to really stitch little stitches into the holes in our business and make it better and better and better. But we're not guessing. We can see where it needs to be tightened. So we're making our business better too. Because the end goal is we want to end goal. not gold. It is gold when it goes right. But the end goal is this happy Griffin, like we call him at the Griffin Realty Group, right? A happy past client who's likely now to repeat with us because they trust us, or even get off their duff and refer. Not everybody does that because people aren't always comfortable doing it, even though they love us. They just don't, not everybody refers, but at least they're part of the community, right? But I want to go to this next point also after that, is that the value ladder itself works best when you don't rush and put the wrong people into it. And one of the key points underlying when somebody ascends the ladder, think about it. If you've even done one great deal that you enjoyed, what was unique about that person? Well, typically they had a real reason to do this. So that made them a little bit more agreeable in their relationship with you, and especially coachable. Agreeable means they're going back and forth in a fair way, not steamrolling over you with their anxiety or their bossy attitude, and they're coachable against this plan. Look, here's where we're at in the plan. Here are the adjustments we need to make, and they move up that ladder the best. So you really have to not just try to do business with everybody. Otherwise, you're going to really waste a lot of time gnashing your teeth and getting mad at somebody when all the while you didn't take the time to think, does this person really have a real why? Are they agreeable? Are they coachable? And do they have integrity? Can we get through this thing together? Those are all important. And then and only then, and this will be a little teaser, maybe I'll have to follow it up in the next episode, then and only then can your traffic sources be considered. Because you're clear about your ladder and your avatar. If you know who the ideal, for example, if you know who the ideal seller is, you know where they live, you know what they own, now you just have to find out if they're the people who have a why, right? Sometimes you can look at expireds and say, well, they all had a why. Well, maybe, but maybe it wasn't big enough. And that's why they failed. Well, I told my realtor, if he could get me my number, that's not a real why. And that can set you up for failure, even if it's the high-end listing you've wanted for a long time. If they're not motivated by a real why, then they're not going to be coachable, and they're not going to listen to you about the pricing adjustments that need to be made from the beginning or through the process to get home on this. So you don't want to really think about your traffic sources until you understand, okay, here's the ideal person. So where do they really hang around? Do they hang around, in a place where telemarketing reaches them best, where a postcard reaches them best, where a digital reach out reaches them best? Okay, so I'll warm that up for the next episode because I'm a little bit long here. Let me go back and summarize this about this value ladder. If you don't have a value ladder, you're definitely going to be lost and in trouble. I'm going to promise you that right now. So get this clear. Number one, see the whole business as a ladder with clear steps that they're ascending ultimately up to this past client, right? And then you have to recognize that not everybody's ready for an upsell. So try to figure out why they're doing this. And as the next step makes sense, move them up. So if they're ready for the appointment because their timing is soon, move them up to an appointment. If they're ready to become a client, ask for the listing. Ask to show them properties, because it'll be logical. And they're silently begging to be led, but not until they're close to really perfectly ready. I say close to because you have to be able to be intuitive in that moment. Next, okay, you have to see the end goal as the creation of a happy past client. And the happiest past client is the one who ascends each ladder step in a way that they feel fully served, right? Hard to do, so you really need to work at this. And then ultimately, your best client is the one that goes through and becomes this. And so that avatar matters. Stay to it. Don't compromise yourself on somebody you know is going to be tough or doesn't really have a reason to go through this. They're going to discombobulate you, and they're going to try to bully you in your own business. Not good. And lastly, traffic comes after you consider all this, not before. Let me summarize it this way. When you understand your value ladder and how it is really the way that your business works in its entirety, you'll never feel lost, and you'll gain a greater sense of a competitive advantage, and you'll also start to build a predictable business. All right, remember now, like I always say at the end of these, you can take immediate action to get started in a more strategic direction with our free simple business plan that's waiting for you over freeagentgift.com. Stop trying to do this business on muscle. It's painful and you won't grow one. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We also broadcast our live sales training calls on Facebook and YouTube every Friday at 1 o'clock EDT, so you can see us getting tactical in there as we express these value ladders. So remember, go turn on those page and channel notifications for the Realty Classroom, and you won't miss the reminders. We'd also appreciate it if you would comment on our post. Hey, listen, communicate with me. I will respond. I'm one of those lunatics that loves what he does. So if I see you communicating with me, I will communicate back. But remember one key thing. Nobody is coming for you. So go get to work on your own business, and I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening.